Good afternoon. Today we're here with Hedda Cooper, who's recently back from representing Australia at the World Junior Rowing Championships. And we're going to ask her a few questions. Hedda, how old are you?
I'm 18.
What school did you go to and when did you finish?
I went to MLC in Melbourne and I finished last year.
And what club do you row for now?
Melbourne Uni.
And what Australian crew were you selected in?
I was in the Junior Women's Coxless 4.
And what seat did you sit in?
Bow seat.
Who's your coach?
Mike Steele.
And what's your PB for 2K ego?
7:17.
Point?
0.
And on sliders or stationary?
Sliders.
Fantastic. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your preparation for the World Championships. How did you get selected in the Women's Junior 4?
So basically I rowed this season of kind of youth rowing in the under-19 and under-21 divisions. So that meant I had like 13 races at Nationals, so I was pretty tired by that time. And then after Nationals I sat down and talked to Mike and we decided that I probably needed a new pair partner for the under-19 team. So I went to my old school and I was like, who can I row with? And Claudia Zaccalli and I started rowing the pair. We trained for about 2 weeks after Nationals and before trials, and then went to trials, did our racing, and yeah, qualified.
Fantastic. And you had 9-week preparation, I think it was. Can you tell us the hardest training session that you had in your preparation for the World Championships?
We had a lot of hard training sessions. We were doing like 4 60-minute ergos a week, so that was kind of got a bit boring, but yeah, I'd say we had a training camp down in Painesville kind of just before we went overseas, and Mike got us to do this 3-hour session where we weren't allowed to stop and we weren't allowed to talk or anything. Yeah, it was pretty much like death, but we got through and we felt good when we got off, so yeah.
3-hour training session was pretty tough. And your racing experience overseas, how might it differ to racing domestically? So if you come up against another Australian crew versus how did you find everyone else raced at the Junior Worlds? Was it different to how people race over here?
I mean, I think it kind of had the same concept, like everyone wanted to win and everyone was there to, you know, row well and have a good time, but it was just all stepped up a notch, so everyone was super serious and you couldn't understand what they were saying, so they were all talking different languages, which is a big thing for me, but yeah, it was just crazy to see how hard everyone raced.
And what was the most memorable part of the tour overseas for you?
We fortunately got to go to Italy before we went over to Lithuania to compete, and I loved training there. It was super picturesque. We had like the Swiss Alps in the background and got to eat gelati 3 times a day and all that, so that was lovely. And then headed to Lithuania for our competition, and yeah, my favourite part of the trip was definitely our final race. We were neck to neck with Canada coming through the 400 metre to go mark, and I was the one doing the calls, and I knew that if we started the wind early we'd just die and they'd pass us, so I held off to the 150 mark, called it up, and then we just got half a boat length on them, so that was epic, especially for me because I'm not usually very good at winding, but felt like I gave it my all that time.
And learning's a bit of a buzzword in high performance rowing in Australia at the moment. What do you think were the greatest things that you learnt from this preparation or your tour overseas that's going to help you be successful in next season or the following seasons in rowing?
I think the biggest thing was like rowing with people from a different state and then racing other countries. It was just really crazy to see how everyone did things differently. So like even just simple things like when we got in the boat with the Canberra girls, they had different calls and different ways of racing. So really like adapting to people's different ways and making the crew go as fast as it could by the end. That was really one of the biggest things that I learned. And then also we had an injury in our crew, so learning how to deal with that and how to approach the person who was injured, and obviously it wasn't their fault that they were injured, so that was a big thing for me. Never had that before.
Okay, and what areas of development will you work on in the coming season that's going to help you become a better athlete?
For me, I'm a pretty big aerobic athlete, so it'll definitely be a lot of anaerobic stuff that I need to work on. So some weights and more power sessions on the erg, that type of thing. A little bit less T2 work.
Yep. So working on flies and tries. And
yeah, pumping the weights.
And what are your short and long-term goals in rowing?
I definitely like to keep representing Australia as much as I can. So next season I'm looking at making that under 23 team and yeah, just pushing myself, developing the best technique that I can.
And just to finish off, coaches, pretty passionate people, but each one of them has got their own catchphrases. Have you got any favourite sayings from your coaches this year?
Well, luckily Mike is a bit of an actor, so we have some good times with him on the water, but one of his favourite things to say is shake and bake when we're being super slow, so that's a good one. And as far as inspirational quotes, whilst we were overseas, our team manager Marty said to us, if you're going to make a change, it has to feel different. And I've been rowing since I got back from overseas and I just keep thinking about that quote. It just makes so much sense to me.
And tell us something that not many people in rowing would know about you.
I used to do kayaking and I was training for the London Games. I used to do whitewater kayaking about 8 times a week.
Wow. So rowing's the winner then, because we've got you now.
Yeah, kayaking's not. No, I like going backwards.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Hedda. I really appreciate it.
No worries.